beer, about 40 beers in there, some soft drinks, and some bottles of this. Well, I've been here for 8 months in Rio Dulce, and I kind of hate to leave in a way because I've become very, very comfortable here. But it's been too long, you know. And with the weather being so humid here, it really has kind of worn on me. And I'm tired of doing projects, tired of work, and looking to have a little more fun with my sailboat life. Approaching my anchorage, which is over there where that other white sailboat is, and a powerboat coming out. Just a little bit more in a straight line, then hang a left when I get past this island, and that's the anchor. Just gonna come around that corner, and you can see a group of other boats already tied up in there. It's kind of hard to see the pass to get you to the inner anchorage, but there is one. There, where that red building is, I would aim right for that. Caio Kamado, day 1. Spent 2 nights at anchor there in Caio Kamado, so technically this is day 3 of the excursion. "32 feet deep." And you can see these are depth contours, so generally the idea is to stay to the outside of the curves because that's where the water plows a deeper path. And this is the fishing gear I've been trying to avoid. Should point out that this trip down the gorge was made much, much easier because of my friend Brent. So thank you, Brent, for hooking me up there. The way I use that chart plotter on Navionics, he taught me a new feature that helps me understand the depth at different points. We're approaching the hairpin turn to the left, where you can find that if you go 20 meters to the left, the water is going to be enough to ground you, which is what happened to me on the way upriver. But where I am, it's well over 60, 70, in some cases 80 feet deep in this river. It's really remarkable how this was formed. So one thing to note is that Livingston has a bit of a reputation for things disappearing. So if you leave a bunch of fenders on your deck, or if you leave scuba tanks and stuff like that, 50-50 they might get pinched. So it's a prudent sailor who kind of hides that stuff, so it's not just a freaking temptation. Like my water hose, my power cord, my blue jug, I've got a little bit of cleanup to do before I even consider leaving. But I'm gonna have to leave in order to go ashore to check out. And then in the morning I meet Hector right here and I follow him out across the bar. Some boats don't need help, but I'm probably gonna need to be towed. Here's something I've never seen before. So I'm just checking the engine after it's been off for a couple of hours, and I'm seeing this black dusty shit that's on the ground. It looks like it's spraying from my pulleys, but the belt doesn't seem to be bad. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. The belt seems way too loose too, so I'm gonna have to tighten that up at a minimum. I mean, it doesn't look like it's on the verge of breaking. We'll do a little investigation. I can even change it. I've got a spare belt or two. I was going to move the boat because it's getting pretty bouncy this time of day. The sea breeze blows in pretty good from the sea, and the river water is trying to go that way by about 1 knot at least. And you can see we're going to really be bucking and bouncing here. And I thought I'd just move up to a further upriver so I don't have to do this all afternoon. Okay, so this is my Zarpe, which is the leaving exit papers. And the one thing you need to know is that you have to specify the port of destination, Puerto Destino. And I usually don't really know, I don't really know where I'm going to go. But you have to know, or you have to make something up. And if you get it wrong, let's say I don't go to Belize and I go to some other country instead, then I'm going to pay a penalty. So if I went directly to Honduras without having a Zarpe that says go to Honduras, and it'd be problematic because I overstayed my visa here, we'll get to that in a minute, then it would be just trouble. I paid a penalty when I entered Belize last time because I didn't have a Zarpe from the USA, and stuff. So it's a necessary thing that is just part of the world nowadays, and it's not something that was done many years ago. Whaling ships would just go where they went, and when they left, and when they arrived at a port, they just show up. But the idea of port captains, I think that has been around for quite some time, and I have to do a little historical research to see when all this started. But the reality now is that you have to have a Zarpe when you leave. This side because I can maintain eye contact with the young kid who's helping Victor, who's facing my way. It's kind of like coming to water here. Now to take a look at the chart, you can see this is the area of concern. That's where it was the shallowest water, and that's where we actually rubbed the bottom. But the whole chart, you see, it looks like we've got a marked channel, and if you stay between the greens and the reds, you're good to go. But that's not true because none of those markers physically exist. So it looks like this. There is no red and green markers in Livingston. We're talking about a 10 or 15 minute transit here being under tow. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. But at some point, I get a visual signal and I can feel that I'm not rubbing bottom anymore, and I'm watching my depth gauge. So between that and the visual signal, we all kind of communicated that it was time to separate the tow. Okay, so real quick, here's a look at the track that the computer saved. getting from Livingston. That's where I released the tow, and then I just motored straight up. There's no wind at all, hardly, getting to Punta Gorda. I'll point out that the red line here at that river, that's the border between Guatemala and Belize. And this is, Punta Gorda is the first port of entry you can get to. And I hadn't been there before, and that's why I wanted to go. But I regret it. I wish I'd gone to Placencia direct. I had been planning to cross this bar here because the depth, as you can see, was showing 3, 4, 5 meters, you know, to cross, but it wasn't. When I got to right at this point, my depth indicator went down to about 6 feet, and I almost rubbed the bottom there. So I immediately turned and went around and stayed in the white basically, and then crept in. But the depth reading was good up in here, and I anchored and then went ashore in Punta Gorda. I was in Belize before one of the taxi drivers kind of clued me in on the fact that there's so many Chinese groceries in Belize. And what he told me, and again, I haven't really gone to fact check or anything like that, but he told me that a number of years back when Belize was first in its independent country, they were actually struggling with population being too small, and they're trying to encourage other people from other countries to immigrate to Belize. And apparently they made some deal such that the Chinese immigrants would kind of have almost like a union / monopoly over grocery stores. And I've never heard of a country doing that, you know, based on a person's race or, you know, origin, but that's what I was told. Or certainly they've dominated, you know, whether that was government sanctioned or whether the Chinese just dominated in the way they do in many other ways. But if you go into a grocery store in Belize, it is almost assuredly going to be owned by a Chinese person every damn time. It's about 2 o'clock when I got finished with the immigration and customs and port control process. And by 2 o'clock, the sea breeze has started, and now I'm trying to go on a heading of about 070, which is directly into about a 15-knot wind. And even though I'm inside the reef, the waves are only 2 to 4 feet, but the period is such that every now and then the bow just digs in, and the boat will go from 4.5 knots, and then it will drop to 1.5 knots. And that went on for about 3 hours. It sucked, I gotta admit. This is Frenchman's Cay, and I'm coming in here from the southwest, and I picked that spot because there's 2 boats dead ahead of me, and you can see 2 sailboats out there. Might be able to see them. So they're dead ahead of me, which means they're right about in my spot. So I'm just gonna, if they are exactly in my spot, then I'm gonna just go to the right of the rightmost one and anchor down here somewhere. This is Frenchman's Cay, and this is typical of it looks a lot like the Florida Cays, really, you know, but same basic idea. So I'm only about 1/10 of a mile away. That's like 500 feet. So I'm gonna sailing vessels anchored in Frenchman's Cay. Frenchman's Cay. This is a sailboat entering from the southwest. So I'm going to end this video right now and continue with the part 2 in just a couple of days. I really appreciate your comments. Thanks again.